Most people spend their entire lives looking for evidence that they are capable, that they are enough, that the thing they sense about themselves, that quiet, persistent, impossible to fully articulate feeling that there is more inside them than the world has yet seen or they have yet expressed, is real and not simply the self-flattering delusion that insecurity sometimes manufactures to protect itself. And what I want to tell you today, with the full weight of psychological research and behavioral science behind it, is that there are specific, documented, identifiable signs of a genuinely powerful mind that have nothing to do with IQ scores or academic credentials or the conventional markers of intelligence that our educational systems have spent centuries mistaking for the thing itself. And if you recognize yourself in what follows, you are not flattering yourself. You are accurately reading the behavioral and cognitive fingerprints of a mind that is operating at a level that most people around you may not fully see, may not fully understand, and may not even fully believe, including, most damagingly, you. The first sign is that you think in questions rather than conclusions. That your natural cognitive response to any idea, any claim, any situation presented to you as settled or obvious is not acceptance but inquiry, not the comfortable finality of agreement, but the persistent, sometimes socially inconvenient need to ask what is beneath this, what is this assuming, what would make this wrong, and what are we missing? And the reason this is a sign of a powerful mind, rather than mere contrarianism, is that the research on cognitive complexity consistently shows that the capacity to hold a question open, to resist premature closure, to tolerate the discomfort of not yet knowing in favor of a more complete eventual understanding, is one of the strongest cognitive markers of genuine intellectual power. Because the weak mind closes questions quickly for the emotional relief of certainty, while the powerful mind keeps them open for the cognitive reward of accuracy. The second sign is that you feel things deeply and think about those feelings analytically, that your emotional life is not separate from your intellectual life, but is processed through it, that you do not simply experience an emotion and act from it, but observe it, examine it, trace it to its source, question its accuracy, and decide what, if anything, it is telling you that deserves to be acted upon. And psychological research on what is called emotional granularity, the capacity to differentiate between specific emotional states with precision rather than experiencing emotion as an undifferentiated flood, consistently shows that people with high emotional granularity demonstrate better decision-making, better stress regulation, greater resilience, and higher cognitive performance across demanding tasks, because a mind that can read its own emotional states with precision has access to information about its own processing that a less differentiated mind simply cannot use. The third sign is that you are acutely, sometimes uncomfortably aware of your own contradictions, that you can hold two opposing beliefs simultaneously and feel the tension between them, rather than resolving it artificially in favor of whichever one is more convenient, that you recognize the gap between who you intend to be and how you actually behave without either catastrophizing the gap or pretending it doesn't exist, and that this self-awareness, while not always pleasant, is the precise cognitive quality that psychologists call intellectual honesty, which is the foundation of all genuine learning and all genuine growth, and without which the most naturally gifted mind will stagnate inside the comfortable fiction of its own consistency. The fourth sign is that solitude is not just tolerable to you, but genuinely nourishing. that some of your best thinking happens in silence, that you return from time alone with more energy and more clarity than you brought to it, that the inner world you inhabit when external stimulation is removed is rich enough and interesting enough to sustain you without the constant input that other people seem to require. And research on what psychologist Ari Kruglansky calls need for cognitive closure shows that people who are comfortable with solitude and mental silence tend to have higher cognitive complexity, greater tolerance for ambiguity, and more sophisticated internal processing than those who require constant external stimulation to feel comfortable. Because the powerful mind has built an inner world worth spending time in and has the self-trust to inhabit it without anxiety. And the final sign, the one that contains all the others, is that you have never fully stopped becoming, that regardless of your age, your circumstances, your past failures, or your current limitations, there is something in you that remains genuinely, persistently, sometimes inconveniently, open to the possibility that you are not yet the finished version of yourself, that the most important thinking you will ever do has not yet been done, that the most important thing you will ever understand is something you do not yet understand, and that this orientation, this fundamental refusal of the cognitive closure that would make life smaller and safer and more predictable, is not restlessness or dissatisfaction or the inability to be grateful for what is, but the defining characteristic of a mind that is genuinely, irreversibly, and magnificently alive to its own potential. Subscribe for more mind secrets.